Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my lecture for the XML for Libraries course. This is the introductory lecture in which I'm going to introduce the course and talk through the syllabus and stuff like that. This is for the fall of 2017, and the number of the course is INFOST 780, and this is section 201, the online section. What we're looking at here is the week 1 page that's part of the weekly schedule. So I've made it a practice for the past 2 or 3 years, I think, to put the schedule for the course on a web app that I developed that just makes life a lot easier for me and allows me to organize the schedule in a way that I hope is intuitive for you to use. And that's called the Weekly Schedule app. So let's just take a tour of that app to begin with. And a number of places that you can get to, including the emails that I send. I will send, or I provide, links to this website for our course. And there's a page for each week, and I'm just going to click on the index page. There's an index page. And on the index page, we have all the weeks. This is a 16-week semester. If you're not familiar with the week numbers, you can look at the start and end date to get some idea. The numbers in the week number column are links to the weekly pages. So we were just on page 1. And there you go. And 1 page is 1 week of the schedule. So the easiest way to navigate from week to week is to use the links in the navigation bar. So if you use the next, you get to week 2 and keep going. Okay. The whole schedule is up for the course, I'm very pleased to say. The occasional piece of content is not there. There'll be a placeholder for it. A placeholder for a piece of content looks like this. Well, right here under other resources, this is eventually going to be a recording of our online office hours session. And it says the resource is not yet available. Expected availability date is Wednesday, September 20th. So that's a placeholder for a piece of content that's going to be posted to the site at a later time. And typically the date I quote is the latest date that I'll post it. And hopefully I'll get some of them up earlier. In this particular case, it's a recording that happens of a meeting that happens the day before, so it could only be 1 day earlier at earliest. This thing walks through our schedule. The weeks are pretty much all the same. Let's see, week 12 is a little different because it's Thanksgiving week. In Thanksgiving week, our a date to hand in the weekly assignments is a day later. Okay, it doesn't really work for us at UWM to take a week off for Thanksgiving because let's see, we have official class days on Monday and Tuesday. And for online courses, I find that students typically would rather have a light week at the end when they're working on their final hand-ins, in our case, a final project, than to take a week off during the Thanksgiving week. But I do give you an extra day to hand in the work. And then let's go to the end of the semester. The last week is week 16, and most people don't think of that as a typical week. It's right before the Christmas holiday, and it is final exam time, and we don't have anything due that week, or we don't really have anything happening that week. But if we click on the previous link and look at week 15, that's the week in which I'm going to have you hand in your final project. Okay, so, and that's going to be due on Friday of that week. Okay. The week before, week 14, oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. So I need to go to previous again. The week before, week 14, we're not really doing a whole lot. That's the week that we could have taken off in Thanksgiving week. Instead, we leave it at the end for you to work on your final project. And we've done that for a couple of semesters now, and people seem to like that, and they seem to also do a better job of the project, which is very enjoyable for me because I'm the guy who gets to look at them and experience them. Okay, so that's the weekly schedule. All right. Let's go back to week 1, which we're just about to start. I guess it doesn't actually start until Tuesday officially. And let's look at what we have. We begin our week on Tuesday with an optional session online on the GoToMeeting platform that I call Online Office Hours Lab Session. And this is going to happen before we really have much of the course under our belt. So probably light attendance, although I'm always welcome to see people who show up. In the Online Office Hours Lab session, we do a couple of things. If we've had hand-in homework for the week before, that was due on Sunday evening, well, then we go over the solutions, okay? And typically I ask for two students to volunteer to show us how they solved the problem. And if I solve the problem in a substantially different way, where I've got some features to show you that I think are important to show, then I'll show my solution as well. The second thing that we do is we talk about the assignments that are coming up for the week. Okay, and questions that you guys have about how to do them, how to trade off different approaches, all that kind of stuff. And the next thing that we do is we really talk about anything of importance in the course, and one of the big things in this course is picking the final project that you're going to do. They're individual projects, and you're going to want to pick one that interests you. And even early in the semester, we've got people saying, well, just trying to get their bearings about what latitude they have in picking the project and what my expectations will be and all that kind of stuff. So it runs on Tuesday nights from 6:30 to 7:30. It's an optional session because of the way we have the rules here at UWM. For those who aren't able to make a particular session, I record the sessions, and I typically post the recording on YouTube the next day and put a link here under other resources. So even if you're not able to make these sessions or one particular session, I really encourage you to play the recording, because there's a lot of learning that goes on when you see how other people solve the problem, and you hear the discussion of alternative solutions. Here's some problems that people had, and We talk our way through how they solve them or how we might have solved them. This is all pretty good stuff. Week one is really an introduction to XML and the tools that we're going to be using. And I just want to point out that I was pretty late in getting the course content up. I just got it published yesterday. And some of you might not have the books yet, okay? So what are the books? Well, let's pop over and just take a look at the syllabus for a minute here. The books include XML in a Nutshell by Harold and Means, XPath 2.0 Programmer's Reference by Michael Kay, and XML for Catalogers and Metadata Librarians by Tim Cole and M.K. Hahn, who happen to be colleagues of mine from the teaching I've done down at the University of Illinois. So the K book, it's a great big book, and it's just a wealth of information about XSLT, but we won't be working on that for 6 weeks, okay? So if you don't have that in hand, that's great. The readings in Harold and Means and Cole and Hahn are important, but you can catch up on those when your books arrive. Okay, so they're an expression of what we're exploring in week one, which is what's this XML stuff all about in general in Harold and Means, and what's it about in particular for people in the LIS field in the case of Cole and Hahn. Okay, to go back to our schedule for week one, my lecture, what is XML and how is XML used, it doesn't assume that you've read those things. Okay? In fact, I used to use this material in teaching people in industry who typically don't read when they take training courses. So you can follow along with the lecture and you'll be able to do the work for the coding assignment even if you haven't gotten your hands on the readings yet. Okay? So don't let that hold you back. So let's talk about the course more generally. Okay? Let's jump back into the syllabus. Okay, the course is XML for Libraries. This is a course that is part of the MLIS program at SOAS. You might be part of another program though, and you might not have library aspirations. So this course is for you as well. Okay, so we cover the basics of XML technology and XML tools, and then we officially explore a bunch of applications of XML that kind of relate to the LIS world, but I'm willing to, and you're able to explore any XML applications that would be applicable to whatever your career aspirations are. Okay? So even though this thing has an LIS flavor, don't get turned off if you're not an LIS person, because I'm very willing and eager to explore XML with people who are headed for other professions. Okay. This is the fall of 2017. It's INFOST 780, Section 201. It meets online. The instructor information is up to date. I do have an office at SOAS. It's on the 3rd floor. It's not too far from the business office. I'm going to be in my office most mornings in this semester. I'll be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings for some period of time. The occasional Friday, not often on Friday. So if you are taking this online course but you happen to be around and you'd like to pop in to say hi, by all means do. My mobile number is there. I've been giving this out to students for 10 years. Nobody's ever abused it, so I keep giving it out. The best way to contact me if you want to have a conversation is to email me and set up a time to talk, so you're sure to be talking to me at a time when is convenient for both of us. On the other hand, if you need to talk to me now, you need to talk to me now. The online office hours and lab sessions we do on the GoToMeeting platform, which is kind of like a webinar platform. It's very, very nice. This is a capability that's been it's been arranged by SOAS that I've been using now for over 3 years, and it's been really a terrific asset in teaching online. I can also use it for individual meetings. So sometimes when people set up individual meetings with me, we meet on GoToMeeting instead of on the telephone, because it gives us a chance to share screens with each other. And a lot of times the questions that people have really have to do with the hands-on work. Okay? Let's see. Talked about online office hours. In the syllabus here, it says that they're optional. That's the nature of the rules at UWM. I encourage you to come. If you can't come, I encourage you to listen to the recordings. I'll post the recordings on the following day. The description of the course. So this is a general course in XML technologies and tools. Okay, and the XML technologies that we cover are XML, XHTML, a little bit of HTML5 in terms of using it, a little bit of CSS3 in terms of using it. We use XSLT, which is the transformation programming language for XML applications. We learned the W3C XML schema language. We learn a technology for rendering high quality print with documents called XSLFO. And we get a tour of XQuery and as much opportunity to indulge ourselves with that as you would like. Right? At the same time, we have a series of XML applications that relate to the LIS field that we're going to survey, and I'm going to want you to pick one of them or some similar XML application to serve as the basis of your project. Particularly for people who are not in the LIS field, you can certainly survey and do projects on other XML applications before you choose one, just get the okay from me that we're talking about the right kind of thing. All right? Enough said. I talked about the text already. The ones that we're going to be using throughout are Harold and Means, which is a great book that I've been teaching out of, since before the 2004 edition came out. So I've been teaching out of this book for about maybe 14 years. I love this book. It's what I used to learn XML back in the day. And I think it's a great, really condensed kind of introduction to XML. The Michael K. book is just a great book on XSLT and things related to XSLT. It's a giant book, and we're just going to scratch the surface of it. But it's going to be a great thing to have on your bookshelf for years to come. If you use this technology going forward, I probably pull out the Michael K. book and look something up, probably every other week. Okay, so it's a great reference to have on hand if you're using these technologies. The Colin Hahn book, it's a great book that has some general information about XML that's a bit of an overlap with Harold and Means, but a tremendous amount of applied information that makes sense for catalogers and metadata librarians. The optional text, the Baca text from Getty and the Miller text, these were the original texts that I inherited when I took over the course years ago. They're both a good resource. I tend to not assign readings in them, but I identify them here because they're both things that you might want to read from, right? So I've just chosen this opportunity to introduce you to the resources. Software-wise, we're going to be doing a lot of hands-on stuff with software. The tool that we're going to be working with throughout the course is the Oxygen XML editor. And I'm going to want you to install that software on your computer. I assume that you have a computer that you can use for this that has either a Windows operating system or a Mac OS operating system. There is support for this product on Linux, so if you want to use a Linux PC, you certainly can. I haven't used this product on Linux in over 10 years. So I'm not going to be able to support you that strongly if you have some problems in installing it or using it. So you certainly can do it. There's a compatibility, but you're more on your own than you would otherwise be. I have created tutorial videos that are you'll find links to them in our week 1 schedule on installing the Oxygen XML editor. There's a video for Windows 10. There's one for Mac OS. I think I created those last spring, so they're really pretty current. So we're going to be working with just that one tool by itself for a long time. Then, As we get later in the course, say week 10ish, we're going to begin to work with XML-based high-quality print formatting using XSLFO. And what we're going to need is an XSLFO print formatting engine. And the one that we're going to use is called XCP, and it's from a company called Renderex. And Renderex has been good enough to give us a license for our use for the class, for all of the students in the class. And I'll be providing on our D2L site, I don't think I have it up yet, but I'll be providing the license file and all the details for that. The version of the XCP engine that we're going to be using can operate as a plugin for the Oxygen XML editor. So we're going to be using it in an integrated way. And I'm going to want you to install it as a plugin. And I have a set of tutorial videos for that. Again, one that works on Windows 10 and one where I show it done on Mac OS. So the links to all that stuff is in the weekly schedule. What I do need to get up yet is a proper link to the license code, which will happen in the next week or two. Again, with all of the products here, they're all Java-based, so they run on Linux as well as Windows and Mac. But the support, the amount of instruction on how to install these things is much more sparse for Linux computers than for Windows and for Mac. So if you're going to do this on a Linux computer, I really want to make sure that you're in a position to support yourself fairly well, and I'd like to talk to you before you commit to doing that. Okay? So let's look at the topics for the course. So the topics for the course, as you see them here, we have interleaved a series of topics that introduce you and give you skills in working with XML technologies and XML tools that apply to any profession. Okay, library-related professions, for sure. Okay, but all kinds of other professions, the publishing industry, just about any kind of scientific pursuit. Most people have some kind of a data interchange format. Most professions have some kind of a data interchange format that is XML based. Interleaved between these general topics are things that are the names of XML applications of particular interest to the LIS profession. For instance, EPUB, which is a standard for electronic books. Okay, MODS, metadata object descriptions schema. So we're going to alternate between the general tools. We're going to learn the general tools all the way through, and then you're going to survey your way through the XML applications as we go through the course. And again, I want you to remember, if there's another XML application that is of big interest to you in your chosen profession, well then I want to hear about it and I want to help you investigate it. Okay? Course outcomes. So this is where we'd like you to be at the end. We want you to be able to author an XML content document that is valid and well-formed. And you'll know what valid and well-formed mean pretty soon. Design and code an XML document schema using the W3C XML schema language. The W3 XML schema language is the most popular schema language, and it's typically what people mean when they say schemas. Validate content in XML documents with W3C XML schemas. Design and code XML transformation programs using XSLT and XPath. Now, XSLT is a programming language that you use to transform XML content-oriented documents into some other typically renderable format, something like HTML. Okay, I call them transformation programs because that's what they are. Okay, they're officially called style sheets, so they're called XSLT style sheets, but they are a programming language, and I like to emphasize that in the course. Generate well-formed web documents with XML content using XSLT, XHTML, and CSS. In addition to XHTML, we also use the XHTML syntax for HTML5. Generate high-quality print documents using all those same tools plus XSLFO. FO means formatting objects. Analyze the collections of XML documents using XQuery. Identify significant XML applications of interest to the LIS community, or whatever other community floats your boat. Okay, so again, my challenge to you is if you're interested in some other professional community that has XML applications, well, let's go explore that. Plan to conduct a proof of concept project using XML technologies and an XML application of interest to the LIS community or whatever other community you're part of. The methods that we use: reading, recorded lectures and tutorials. All my lectures and tutorials these days are on YouTube. Text-based online discussion in D2L forums. Voice-based online discussion in GoToMeeting sessions, which are optional. Planning and execution of an individual proof of concept project. In the next section, I present a link to the course schedule, and I'll just click through on it so you can see that that gets you to the index page for our course. Okay. Now, the weekly schedule is typically a living document. It's not really possible for me to create a schedule that's perfect in the very beginning. I only change things to make them better. I try not to change them at the last second. I need to adapt to circumstances as they arise within the course. Whenever I post content that there's a placeholder for, or I make a change in the schedule, I will announce it in the D2L announcements for our class. And I always email every announcement that I put into D2L announcements. So you can, by monitoring your email, see everything that's going on in terms of a change to the course. Estimated workload. There's a lot of work here, 10 to 15 hours per week. The exact number of hours that it's going to take for you to do is going to really be based on your speed and your experience. There's going to be a lot of typing. Some people type faster than others. Some people have already used some of these tools. Some people haven't used any of these tools. Your mileage is going to vary, okay? Your grade in the course is going to be based upon the outputs that you produce rather than the number of hours that it takes to produce them. That's okay. That's the way it works in the real world, okay? Everybody, regardless of the experience that they have coming into this class, should be able to do well, okay? It is going to take more time for the less experienced than for the more experienced. Let's go through the course elements. The readings. The readings that we have are from the text that I showed you, the required text, plus the supplementary texts, or some readings that you can do. Also, in the weekly schedule, I have links to other resources that I'd like you to read. In particular, as we go through all of the XML applications that we review in the course, there's typically a link to a general kind of a description of that XML application. I mentioned EPUBs, I mentioned mods, and it might be something as basic as a Wikipedia article. Okay, I want everybody to read. I typically have one kind of introductory link under the required readings for the week, and I want everybody to read that. In addition, I want students to post into a forum. It's called the Final Project Forum. I want them to put a long form post out for three topics that have to do with potential XML applications that they would like to pursue for their project. Okay, so I've done some research ahead of time. So in the optional readings or other resources, I have links to other places that you can go if you want to make this the XML application that you're going to write a post on and that you're going to investigate as possibly the XML application for your final project. Now, again, if you would like to explore some other application that isn't in this list and post about that, just check with me ahead of time to get it approved. I'm sure that people would love to see things about those other applications. I know that I would. Videos. So I have lectures like this and tutorials, which are hands-on demonstrations that I have you play before I have you do the hands-on assignments. And typically, the approach that I take to training you in these skills is one that I'm told is used in training surgeons. It's called watch one, do one, teach one. And I have to confess that I learned about this on the TV show Grey's Anatomy. Okay, they've talked about it several times there, and I've researched it, at least a la Google, and it seems to be something that they do actually use. So watch one is where you really see someone do the skill that you're going to do. So my tutorial videos are the watch one, right? The do one, for each assignment that you have, you'll be doing a problem that's not the one that I demonstrated, but it's just like it, or it's comparable to it, all right? Well, where's the teach one? Well, in our online office hours lab session, When you get the opportunity to show us what your solution was and walk through it and explain how and why, well, aren't you teaching? So watch one, do one, teach one. I do have one video that I gave you. It's the very first link to a video that talks about options for playing my videos at faster speeds. So I encourage you to watch that. It's a short one, and I think it's helpful. Coding assignments. This is really, like most of these technical topics, you really learn by doing, right? So there's a long series of coding assignments that I'm going to have you do, and that's going to be your do one out of the watch one, do one, teach one, okay? They'll be paired with tutorial videos in most cases, although things that are very, very simple and like things we've done before might not have their own individual tutorial video. It's really important that you give these a try before you see the solution. I'll tell you why. It's a lot, because that's where I think the learning goes on. All right? It's that simple. Once you see a solution, it's much easier to do it, right? All the angst about, am I understanding this, or is this detailed enough, or am I taking the right approach? All those kind of angsty things that you always get the first time you do something, well, that gets taken away from you. Well, you would think that was good, but no, that's something, if you're going to learn to do this stuff independently, you have to master these things independently, okay? And part of that is just the angst of going through it, okay? Now, if we shortchange you on angst, we're going to shortchange you on ability. So we really want you to do your assignment before the weekend deadline. Okay? And in order to get you to do that, the grading rubric has some big incentive for that. Okay? And you will see that. I'm really trying to get my students to build their self-evaluation skills. Okay? Because of two things. One, I have a lot of students, and even though I've helped with grading, it takes us 2 or 3 weeks to get the grading back, okay? That's really too long for you to get learning help from seeing the feedback. That's why we go through in the online office hours lab session, that's why we go through the solutions every week. Okay, because that's when you're ready to learn. Why are you ready to learn? Well, because you just had that angst. You know, you've got you've got a problem to solve, right? So what I want you to be able to do is, by the time we've gone through the assignment, you'll have a grading rubric in hand. I want you to be able to estimate what your grade was. Okay, you should be able to come really close, certainly within 5 points. Okay. The other thing is, in these kinds of technical jobs, you generally work on your own and then you give the output to your stakeholders, right? You're not going to go to them with the output of your work and say, well, does this look right to you? No, you're not. If you're not sure if it's right, well, then you're going to, maybe talk to your technical contacts. I mean, you're going to be able you need to get yourself to the point where you're confident in the result before you give it to the consumer. Okay? So the self-evaluation skill is a necessary skill to be a good data analyst who uses these tools. Otherwise, you'll be handing in things to people that are not reliable, and your reputation is going to be damaged for it. Okay? We will grade your assignments to send you grades to compare to the ones that you estimated. We will give you feedback. Okay? It's going to be 2 to 3 weeks down the road. Okay. Now, underlying this whole scheme is a grading rubric that helps you learn. It promotes the kind of learning that I want you to have, and it makes it easier for us to grade your work. So there are 2 behaviors that we want to promote. One is we want you to submit your work in a way that it makes it easy to grade. We're grading a lot of these things. I mean, if you get some idea, I probably have this semester, I probably have 150 students, and on average they are handing in 10 practice assignments like this. That's 1,500 things to grade. You got to have a workflow that works, right? So it's really important that you submit your work in a way that conforms to all of the instructions. It's typically what we do is we are, early in this course, we're handing in a single file. We might create a one HTML document and hand it in. But not too long after that, we've got 2. We have an HTML document and a CSS style sheet. Well, how do we do that? Well, what I'm going to want you to do is to put them in a properly named directory and zip that up and hand in one file, okay? And have it be properly named so that when we download it, it sorts in the right order with respect to what we downloaded for the rest of the students, okay? So that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for on that scale. The other thing is we want you to submit your work by the week ending deadline because we want you to get full benefit of the conversations that go on in online office hour lab sessions. Okay? If you do the work by the deadline, if you make a good faith effort on all parts of the assignment, well then you'll be ready to learn. Even if you didn't get it right, you're going to be ready to learn when we talk through the solutions. So how does this turn into points in the grading rubric? Well, 10 points are going to be assigned for following the directions and submitting a single properly named and properly formatted file to the right D2L assignment submission activity. You would think that would be easy, but many of your predecessors have fallen down on that. And then on the content part, on the contents of what you submit, okay? If you demonstrate a good faith effort on all parts of the assignment and hand it in on time, so if you've given everything the good university try and hand it in on time, then you'll be guaranteed on that content part to get 75 points at a minimum, okay? If you hand it in late, then you're only going to get 74 points or less, Oh, okay, there'll be no way to get higher than 74 points for that part. So what does this work out to? Well, it works out to this. If you follow all the instructions in handing things in, and if you give a good university try on all parts of the assignment, and you hand it in on time, you're guaranteed to get an 85. Okay, that's a good solid B. All right. On the other hand, you could do a lot worse. All right. Participation is important in this course. Okay. In fact, it is a major percentage of the grade. Let's go down and look at the grading stuff. Participation is 10% of the grade. That's a letter grade. That's the difference between an A and a B. And as I know, to many of my students, that means the world. So participation, how do you do well at that? Well, let's go up and look. Okay, there are forum posts. Okay, so there's this introduce yourself forum, to which I'm expecting you to make what I call a long form post or a significant post in week 1. And it has some instructions when you go there about what we'd like to know about you. Okay? The other thing is I want you to, of all the XML applications that we talk about, the ones that are already in the course, or ones that you might find and get my approval to talk about them as well, we want you to investigate 3 of them and to give us a long form post about each of those. Okay? And there's a forum called Pick 3. There's a final project forum, and we say in a lot of places we have this phrase pick 3, which means we just want 3 posts. Now there are how many weeks in the schedule? There are 16 weeks in the schedule. We don't want 16 of these. We want 3 of these. Okay. When are they due? Well, they're due when you post them. They're going to be most helpful to you if you do them sooner rather than later. Okay. Could you do them before they appear in the weekly schedule? You darn tootin' you can. Can you do them later? Well, if you really want to get the benefit of this kind of research that you're doing on these applications to pick the one you want to do for your project, well, you're not really going to get the benefit if you do it too late in the course because you need to get working on your project. Okay? In terms of scoring, well, you could do them all in the last week. Okay? In terms of them being useful to you, getting your education out of this, well, I'd do them sooner. I'm expecting you to read the post of other students and to respond with short posts when appropriate, and you'll get some credit for those responses. There's also credit for coming to the optional office hours and participating. Okay? There's no credit for coming. There's credit for participating. And exactly how you get credit for that, I'll introduce in a minute. There's a table. Okay? Now, I've had people say, well, I can't make those. I work third shift, or I work second shift, so I'm at work then. Well, then your opportunity for participation is probably going to go on more on the forums. Okay, that's really the best I can do for you. Okay. Okay, all this participation is good stuff. Okay, so how do I grade this stuff? Well, what I do is I keep track of things and I give people points. So these long form posts, I give you 3 points. A regular post to a discussion forum where it's not an introduce yourself or one of those pick 3 final project posts, well, then you'll get 1 point. If you come to online office hours and you speak, well, then you'll get 1 point. If you volunteer to present your solution, which really takes some guts, okay, especially if you're not sure you did it right, okay. Now, the good thing for me is that whether you did it right or you didn't do it right, it's as good a teaching opportunity for me either way, okay. So I don't want to just pick people to talk who've done a perfect job, okay. Sometimes people who've done a less than perfect job or who are less sure of what they did create a better teaching opportunity for me. So these opportunities are so important to me that they're worth 5 points. Okay. So what do? Well, at the end of the semester, I add up all the points and I see how people did. And let me tell you, I get quite a distribution. I get, kind of something like a normal distribution. I mean, I get a couple of people who are in the stratosphere. And I get a couple of people that you can't believe were in the course. Okay? The people in the stratosphere all get 100 for that part. The people who you can't believe are in the course are getting things like a 59. Okay? The other people kind of group together and they get things in the middle. I typically assign on the 5 points. So I assign 100s, 95s, 90s, 85s, 80s, 75s, and then from there. Okay? So there's lots of ways to participate. I think it enhances your learning and everybody else's. And this is as fair as I've been able to make it so far. So that's how participation grades go. Now the final project. All right. The final project is your first attempt to use XML on your own to do something that is appealing to you. Now that could be something that's appealing to you in terms of your job, or it just might be appealing to you personally. Do you have to do an entire project? Well, no, you have to do a proof of concept. Okay. So for instance, if you were using, for instance, let's say you were using a doc book to write a technical document. Okay, would you have to write the entire technical document? No, but if you have the entire technical document, and this is something that you're actually going to use, well, mark up the whole thing. But if the thing isn't done, and you can show me, the front matter, and you can show me, 3 good chapters, then that's going to be fine. Okay. Likewise, let's say that you're going to take some scholarly document and you're going to use TEI. Do you have to mark up the entire scholarly document? Well, no, you don't. Again, a good 3 chapters and the front matter are fine. But if you have the whole document and you want to do it because you want to show it to people and use it, well, all the better. Okay? So a really important distinction here that students historically have found it hard to get through their heads is the following. we want you to use a standard XML schema. Okay? Now, during the course, we teach you how to design a custom schema for a custom XML application. Okay? Here, we're doing something different. We're having you explore standard schemas that people use for all kinds of things. Okay? And a part of what we're trying to learn is how to identify them and use them. Okay? So we don't want you to create your own custom schema here. We want you to pick from one of the standard ones that we are studying during the course. Okay? How much content is enough content? Well, typically, if we're talking things with chapters, 3 chapters or more. If we're talking about things, one of the things we do is CDWA, which is metadata to categorize works of art. You're going to do some collection. Well, maybe 10 works of art. Okay, it depends on how much metadata you have as well. I invite people to consult with me on how much is enough. Where do you get your content? Either it's your content, or it's your organization's content, or it's in the public domain. It could be, could be public information in some way. Okay, there's a lot of public domain content at Project Gutenberg in terms of fiction and poetry and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good place to go to find content that that has already been encoded into text. You have to mark it up and turn it into proper XML content. What standard XML schema are you going to use? Well, that's the big question of the course, finding one that you're really interested in, right? You actually have to come up with a way to generate output that can be seen, okay? Now, most standard schemas have some standard way that you can view the content. I'll give you an example here. TEI and DocBook are so popular that the Oxygen XML editor has XSLT transformations that you can run in order to render your documents. You just have to be able to find your way to them within the product and run them. If you're if you're creating an ebook with EPUB, well, it can be rendered with any EPUB ebook reader. So I typically, students who submit EPUB ebooks, I usually read them with this little guy here, iBooks, and I probably have one. Yeah. Here's here are 2 copies of an EPUB book by one of my students, and he did The Seawolf by Jack London. Here's a vegan Minnesota reference that somebody created, a person who was in the course last spring created. Okay, so you're lucky if you pick EPUB. Well, there are renderers all over the place. Okay, some of the other applications are a little bit thinner on things to render the output, and you might actually have to create a custom XSLT to get the job done. What are the deliverables of your final project? They include the marked up XML content, code like XSLT, those kinds of things, and a written project report. The code is expected to be testable. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and you're expected as part of your project report to provide instructions with which I can test the code. So I actually take this stuff and load it up and run it. All right, I just don't take your word for it. I see whether I can make it work too. We've all got the same tools, so I should be able to do what you did. There's going to be a separate set of instructions and a grading rubric for the final project, but just wanted to get you thinking about that as early as I could. The grade, we looked at this before. So the coding assignments that you're doing as we're going through the course, 40% of the grade. Participation, 10%. The final project will be 50% of the grade. 35% is the code itself and how it works and all that kind of stuff. And 15% is going to be the report. So the report's important. How do we assign letter grades? Well, I've got a table here, which I really should have not split the page, but I did. This mapping of letter grades to number grades is a thing that I got from a colleague when I joined SOAS nearly 4 years ago. It's pretty standard, okay? It's certainly not one that I invented, and I don't think you'll find it surprising. And then the very last thing here is we have this last section of the syllabus. It has UWM and SOAS academic policies. And this is an interesting section because it's what we call in the authoring biz boilerplate. Okay, so it should be the same in every syllabus that you see from SOAS. Okay, now things evolve over time, so it's never perfectly the same, but it should be substantially the same, right? So that makes it kind of mundane, right? On the other hand, these are really important subjects, okay? So if you haven't read this stuff and you haven't considered what it says, well, then you got to do it, okay? Because it's about things like students with disabilities, religious observances, students called to active military duty, incomplete grades. Most people think it's easier to get an incomplete grade at UWM than it actually is. Of all the places I've ever gone to school or taught, it's hardest at UWM to qualify for an incomplete grade. So you ought to know what the rules are on that up front. Discriminatory conduct such as sexual harassment. It's very important for us to have a fair and safe learning space for all of us and for everybody to be treated with dignity and care. Okay, so it's very important to know about that. Academic misconduct. Very important to know what is allowable and what's not. And then finally, if you have some complaints or you need to appeal a grade, there are some things on that. So again, boilerplate, and if you've already seen this, things you might know already, but it's important stuff. And I want to say, if you need help on any of these things, these are now all things that I help with directly, but I'm pretty good at referring to people, to the right people, and come to me or come to somebody within the department, and we'll help you. Okay? So that is it. Okay? That's the whole syllabus. This is a super fun course for me. I've been working with XML for, well, since 2000, since about certainly 2002. I've been teaching it since 2002, so that's what, 15 years. I use XML to publish all the weekly schedules that I do. We saw that at the beginning of the lecture. I also use it for creating custom slides. So, for instance, if we go back to the weekly schedule for week 1, and we come down here and we look at the slides to what is XML and how is it used. This was all authored in XML. It was transformed with XSLT into XSLFO and rendered by the RenderX XCP print formatter. Okay, so I use this stuff all the time. Okay, I love it. So it's a fun course for me. And I'm hoping that some of that enthusiasm is going to rub off on you. I'm going to do my best to make sure that happens. So having said that, I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.